We'll get a test, she said, just to be sure it's his. She smiled when she said it, like she was suggesting decaf instead of regular. Emily froze. Her hand dropped to her stomach. What the hell, Mom, she whispered. Denise sipped her tea. Calm. Deliberate. Like she hadn't just questioned everything. Emily looked at me, then away, and I saw it, the fight flicker and die. My name's Ethan, and this is the story of how I found out the woman I loved came with a mother who already assumed the worst about me. Emily and I met at a friend's engagement party. One of those rooftop things in late September, string lights, tiny food, champagne with names I couldn't pronounce. I wasn't supposed to be there. A buddy dragged me out of the house after a rough breakup and told me to get back in the mix. Emily was the mix. She was firecracker smart, quick with a joke, quicker with a kindness. We spent half the night laughing over bad wine and half-frozen appetizers. By the time I left, I had her number. And by the end of the week, I had her heart. 3 years later, we were engaged. Nothing flashy. Just a quiet proposal at home, pizza on the coffee table, her favorite old movie playing in the background. She cried, said yes before I even finished the sentence. Told me she didn't need a ring, just me. Of course, I still got her a ring. I wanted her to have proof, not for the world, but for herself, that someone had picked her, chosen her, without question. Because, truth be told, Emily didn't grow up with much certainty. Her mom, Denise, was the kind of woman who made you feel like you owed her something just for breathing the same air. Every compliment came wrapped in critique. Every hug felt like a transaction. I remember one Thanksgiving, Emily showed her a new dress. Denise squinted, said it was almost flattering, then told her to stand up straighter. I used to think Emily had grown out of needing her mother's approval. Turns out, I was wrong. We'd been trying for a baby for a while, quietly, no pressure, just hoping. The kind of hoping you do with your fingers crossed under the dinner table, afraid to say it out loud. And when that second line finally showed up on the test, pale, trembling, but there, Emily looked at me like the world had just cracked open in the best way. She whispered, I'm scared. I told her, so am I. But we'll figure it out. She nodded, kissed me, said she wanted to tell her mom. I should have said no, but I didn't. I thought maybe this time, just this once, Denise would surprise us. Be soft, be proud. Instead, she served tea, poured 3 perfect cups, sat us down at her table like we were on trial. Emily told her gently, with shaking hands and a hopeful smile, said we just found out, said we were excited, that she hoped Denise would be too. That's when it came. That smile, that sentence, that slap without a sound. We'll get a test, she said, just to be sure it's his. I watched Emily's face fall in slow motion, like a building collapsing from the inside. She didn't argue, didn't yell, just sat there, fingers curled under the table, nodding slowly, like some part of her had expected it. Me? I stood up, not loudly, not with fury, just quietly, like a man realizing the room he thought was his home was just a stage set for someone else's performance. Denise looked up at me, still sipping her tea, like she hadn't just accused her daughter of betrayal. I didn't say a word. Not yet. Because sometimes, silence says more than shouting ever could. But believe me, the silence wasn't going to last. Not after that. The worst part wasn't what she said. It was how normal she made it sound. Like it was standard protocol. Like accusing your daughter's fiancé of not being the father was just another item on the baby shower checklist. I walked out of that kitchen without a word. And Emily, she didn't follow me. Not right away. I sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. My head was buzzing, not with rage, not yet, but with something colder. The kind of hurt that doesn't shout. The kind that just settles. 5 minutes later, Emily slipped into the passenger seat. She didn't look at me, but she wasn't staring blankly either. Her hands were clenched in her lap. Her knee bounced. You didn't have to leave, she said finally. I turned toward her. What was I supposed to do? Sit there while your mom accused you of cheating and pretended it was polite? She winced. I didn't know she'd say that. But you weren't surprised either. That hit her. She sighed. I wanted her to be happy for us. I thought, maybe this time, she'd react like a mom, not a judge. I let that hang in the air. Then I asked, gently, do you believe her? Emily turned to me. Hurt flickered behind her eyes. No, she said firmly. God, no. But I knew if I pushed back in that moment, it'd just get worse. And I panicked. You froze. She nodded. I'm not proud of it. So now what? I asked. She looked down at her lap again. Now I try to fix it. I don't know how yet. But I'm not okay with how that went. Not with her. And not with you. I could feel my grip on the wheel soften. She wasn't perfect, but she was still fighting. And that mattered more than silence ever could. I didn't drive us home. I drove us to a parking lot 2 miles from our apartment and sat there with the engine off, staring at the dashboard, listening to the air between us grow heavier by the second. She finally said, "This isn't about me not trusting you. It's about ending the questions before they start." Ending them? Or feeding them? She didn't reply. That night, we didn't sleep in the same bed. She curled up on the couch, said she needed time to think. I lay in our bed, staring at the ceiling fan, wondering how something so beautiful, a child, had already become a battlefield. The next morning, my phone rang. Denise. Not Emily's. Mine. And that told me everything I needed to know. She didn't call her daughter, the one she'd supposedly been protecting. She called me. Because she knew Emily wouldn't say a word. But I would. I almost didn't answer. But some twisted part of me needed to hear what kind of woman thinks she can lob that kind of grenade into someone's life and then carry on like nothing happened. Her voice was crisp, polished, like she was calling to confirm a brunch reservation. "I hope you don't take yesterday personally," she said. "I know it came out strong, but this is a serious matter. And if you trusted her, you wouldn't be offended." That's when the quiet broke. "I do trust her," I said, "but it's not her I'm offended by." A pause. "I see," she said, cool as ever. "Well, I've raised a daughter, Ethan. I know how complicated women can be, and I know what men are capable of when they feel trapped." That word, trapped, stuck in my throat like glass. "This isn't a trap," I said. "This is a life, one we chose. Together." She made a soft humming sound, like she wasn't convinced. "Just be sure," she said. "That's all I'm saying. Because nothing ruins a marriage faster than doubt." And then she hung up. Just like that. When Emily came into the bedroom that evening, her eyes were puffy, her hair still damp from the shower. She stood in the doorway for a long time. Then, quietly, almost like she didn't want to hear herself say it, "I made an appointment." She hesitated. "For the test." I sat up, not in shock and sadness. "Are you sure?" I asked. She didn't look at me. "No," she whispered, "but I don't know what else to do." And in that moment, I saw her not as the woman I loved, but as the little girl Denise had raised, the one who always had to earn her peace. She wasn't doing it for her, or for me. She was doing it for the voice that never left her head. And the worst part? That voice didn't even sound like her mother anymore. It sounded like her own. But in proving something, she was about to lose more than she realized. Because trust doesn't die in a fight. It dies in the small, quiet moments when someone you love stops choosing you. And right then, I wasn't sure she was still choosing me. The results came in a week later. A white envelope. No markings. No message. Just a sealed answer, sitting on the kitchen counter like a dare. Emily hovered near it for hours. Washed the dishes. Reorganized the spice rack. Folded 2 loads of laundry. But her eyes never left that envelope. "What if it doesn't help?" she said finally. I looked up. "What do you mean?" "What if it says exactly what we already know, and it still doesn't fix what broke?" I didn't have an answer. She stepped forward, reached for it like it was something fragile. Her hands were trembling. "I hate that we even needed this," she whispered. "We didn't," I said quietly. She opened it slowly, pulled out the paper. Her lips moved as she read. Just once. Then again. She looked up at me. "It's yours," she said. But her voice cracked on the last word, like she wanted it to fix everything and already knew it couldn't. Like the truth was a magic key that would lock the world back into place. I nodded. Of course he was mine. I'd known. Every part of me had known. But this wasn't about DNA. This was about trust. And trust doesn't come back sealed in an envelope. We didn't talk much that night. She made pasta. I took 2 bites. We watched a movie without remembering the name. We said goodnight, but not, "I love you." The air between us was hollow, like a room stripped of furniture. The shape was still there, but nothing to sit with. At 2 a.m., I woke to find her sitting on the edge of the bed, legs curled up, hands over her stomach, just watching herself in the dark. She looked so small. "I thought this would help," she said. I stayed quiet. "I thought if we did the test, it would shut her up, make you feel safe." I whispered, "It didn't make you feel safe, though, did it?" Her breath caught. "Just a little." "She gets in my head," she admitted. "Always has. Makes me question everything." "She made you question me." That landed like a cold stone in the room. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have fought harder. For us." The next morning, she called her mom, told her the results, told her she didn't want to talk for a while. I overheard the conversation from the hallway. Denise didn't scream, didn't cry. She just said, "Well, that's good to know. But I still think a man shouldn't be so sensitive." Sensitive. That's what she called it. Not betrayed. Not humiliated. Not publicly doubted by the woman who raised the woman I'm supposed to spend my life with. Just sensitive. I walked out the door before I said something I couldn't take back. I spent the day at a park bench. That probably sounds dramatic. It wasn't. It was just the only place I could sit still without feeling like I was about to suffocate. I watched parents push strollers. Kids chase pigeons. A man toss crumbs to ducks like they were old friends. And I thought, that's what I want. A life where things don't feel like battles. Where love doesn't come with conditions and scorecards. Where being right doesn't matter as much as being kind. Emily met me there after work. Sat down next to me, knees touching mine, but not holding my hand. We watched the water. Finally, she said, I want to do this. With you. The baby. Everything. I know, I said. But you don't trust me right now. I didn't say anything. Because she was right. Not fully. Not the way I used to. And the part that scared me most? I wasn't sure if that trust would ever come back. There's a thing nobody tells you about love. It's not destroyed by the big betrayals. It's weakened by the small choices people make when you're not looking. The ones that say, I believe someone else more than I believe you. I'll stand near you, but not always with you. And when those choices add up, even a positive paternity test can feel like a loss. Because by the time Emily found the truth, the foundation had already cracked, and we were both still standing on it. We were in the nursery when she brought it up. Her hand rested on a folded onesie, the kind with little gray stars. She smoothed it flat with her palm, like pressing the fabric might press something into place. I've been thinking, she said, about names. I nodded. She hesitated, bit her lip. Then, if it's a boy, I was thinking maybe Thomas. She glanced at me. After my dad. I didn't say anything right away. She kept going. I know what he did. Or didn't do. I'm not trying to honor that. I don't know. Maybe if the name means something good now, it stops being about him. I looked at her. Really looked. You want to rewrite it, I said. She nodded. Maybe that's stupid. I've spent so long trying to fix the story I came from. Maybe naming him is my way of changing the ending. I took a breath. I get that, I said. I really do. But that name doesn't feel clean to me. Not yet. Not for him. Her face softened. Okay, she whispered. Then we'll find one that does. That night, we sat in silence through dinner. Chicken. Rice. Something with asparagus. She didn't eat much. Neither did I. The tension between us had become another presence in the room. Not loud. Just constant. Like background noise you can't tune out anymore. Eventually she said, You think I'm weak? No. I replied. I think you've spent your whole life trying to prove your mom wrong, and your dad right. And I think somewhere in the middle, you lost track of yourself. She didn't look up. I kept going. I fell in love with you, Em. Not the version you thought your family needed you to be. Then I added something I hadn't meant to say, but couldn't stop myself from saying. And I need to know you'd fight for us. Not just keep the peace with them. A few days later, Denise showed up at our apartment, uninvited. Said she was just dropping off some baby books from the attic. Walked in like she still lived there. Like this was her space too. Emily froze. I didn't. I stepped between them. Denise, I said calmly, you're not welcome here right now. She blinked like I'd slapped her. I beg your pardon? I said this isn't your home. And until you can respect both of us, not just when it suits you, you need to stay away. Emily looked at me like I'd just done something unspeakable. But she didn't stop me. Not this time. Denise left without another word. That night, Emily finally broke. She cried for an hour. Not loudly. Not with drama. Just sat in the shower and let the water cover her face until I wasn't sure which drops were hers. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. She's all I had. When he left, when things got bad, it was always just her and me. I sat on the floor outside the bathroom, leaning against the door. I know. She's hard, Emily whispered. But she's mine. I didn't say anything right away. Then I said the one thing I'd been holding in since this all began. And I need to know that I'm yours too. Because love isn't just about who you let in. It's also about who you choose to stand beside, even when it means standing against someone else. The next morning, she left a note on my coffee mug. You are. I promise. Even when I forget how to show it. And for the first time in weeks, the silence between us didn't feel sharp. It felt like soil. Like maybe something could grow again. We didn't plan it that way. No one does. But life's got a cruel sense of timing sometimes. Like it waits for everything to feel fragile, then taps the glass just enough to make it crack. Emily's water broke just before dawn. No drama. No screaming. Just a sharp breath, a shaky hand on my shoulder, and one whispered word. It's time. I jumped out of bed like the floor had turned to fire. Grabbed the go bag we'd packed weeks ago. Checked it twice. Forgot my own shoes. But Emily? She was calm. Almost eerily so. Like her body had already moved into a place my mind couldn't catch up to. In the car, between contractions, she looked out the window and said, "She hasn't called back. Not once." I didn't have to ask who she meant. Denise had stopped speaking to us 3 weeks earlier, after the day I told her to leave. She'd sent one text, just one. "I see where your priorities are now." Emily never replied, and neither did I. But now, in the half-light of a hospital parking lot, that silence felt louder than ever. "She won't come," Emily said, hand resting on her belly like it was shielding something precious. "Even if I call her." "Do you want to?" I asked. She didn't answer, which told me she already knew. The birth was long, 20 hours. No sleep, no food, just ice chips and nurses who moved like angels disguised in sneakers and scrubs. Emily was a force, not fierce, not loud, but steady, like a river cutting through stone, slow, certain, unstoppable. I held her hand the whole time, told her over and over, "You've got this. I've got you." And when the baby finally cried, one sharp, beautiful cry that cracked open a piece of me I didn't know existed, Emily collapsed into tears of her own. "It's a boy," the doctor said. But I already knew. I think some part of me had known for months. They placed him on her chest, skin to skin. And right then, I saw something shift in her eyes. Not relief, not even joy, but ownership. Like, for the first time in her life, she wasn't holding someone else's expectations. Just her son. Ours. We named him Micah. Not Thomas. Not anyone's shadow. Just Micah. A name that felt soft and strong all at once. Emily whispered it like a prayer. And for the first time in a long time, I felt her choose something not out of fear, not to please, not to survive, but because it was hers. Because it was ours. Later that night, after the nurses had taken him for a checkup, I found Emily sitting up in bed, staring at her phone. "I typed the message 6 times, she said. "To your mom." She nodded. "Want to read it to me?" She shook her head. "I deleted it." "Why?" Her eyes glistened, but her voice was clear. "Because I don't want my first act as a mother to be asking her to show up." I nodded. Didn't tell her what a brave thing that was. Didn't tell her how proud I was. Just climbed into the narrow hospital bed beside her, pulled the blanket over our shoulders, and let the silence say what words couldn't. Micah's first night in the world was quiet. No flowers from Denise. No calls. No apologies. But in the stillness, in the dim hospital light, we felt something stronger than approval. We felt peace. And sometimes, peace costs more than we ever thought we'd pay. But it's worth it. Every time. It arrived in a plain brown box. No return address. No signature. Just a soft rectangle of cardboard with our last name written in stiff, deliberate handwriting. Emily stared at it like it was a letter from a ghost. We hadn't heard from Denise since the day Micah was born. Not a text. Not a visit. Not a whisper. She'd vanished from our lives in the one moment we assumed she might show up. And maybe that was her answer. Maybe that was the note. But now, this small, folded offering. Inside the box, wrapped in tissue paper, was the blanket Emily used to sleep with as a child. Faded yellow. Tiny hand-stitched stars. A little frayed around the edges. No card. No apology. Just history, packed tight and wordless. I watched Emily hold it to her chest. She didn't cry. Didn't smile either. She just breathed. Deep. Slow. "He used to wrap me in this when I had nightmares," she whispered. "My mom. Back when she still felt like mine." Micah cooed from his bassinet. Just a soft, sleepy sound. Emily reached over and laid the blanket beside him. He grabbed the edge like he'd been waiting for it. "I don't know what she wants," she said. "Maybe she doesn't either," I answered. We stood there for a long time, both of us watching our son sleep. And in that moment, I realized something I'd been too tired to see before. Emily wasn't the same woman who sat in her mother's kitchen, nodding through insults just to keep the peace. She had changed. Motherhood hadn't made her softer. It made her clearer. We never sent a thank you. Not because we weren't grateful, but because some things don't need to be said when they've already been understood. Denise wasn't in our lives anymore, but she'd left a trace. A thread. Maybe not to follow, but to acknowledge. That was enough. Micah turned 6 months old last week. He's loud. Laughs like the world's funniest joke is just under his tongue. And when he sees Emily, his whole face lights up like it remembers something from before memory even begins. She's good with him. Not perfect, not polished, but present, which, in the end, is the only thing that matters. Sometimes, I still think about that moment, the one where it all cracked open. The kitchen, the test, the silence that followed. I used to wish we could go back, do it differently, draw the line sooner, say the right words faster. But now, I don't. Because that fracture made something else possible. It forced us to choose each other, not by default, but on purpose. And love that's chosen after the breaking? That's the kind that holds. The last time Emily and I sat out on our tiny balcony, she was feeding Micah while the sun slipped behind the buildings. She looked over at me and said, "Thank you for not walking away when I made it hardest to stay." I reached for her hand. "You gave me a reason to stay," I said. "And you gave him a world to be born into. That matters more than any test ever could." She smiled, not to smooth things over, not to fill silence, just because she meant it. And in that quiet, everyday moment, I knew. The past didn't win. Fear didn't win. We did. Together. No permission. No proof required. Just love. Ours.